Lately, I've been thinking a lot about the invisible highways carrying all our digital stuff, data.
Right.
And one piece of tech that's really caught my eye is fiber Bragg Grating Amplifiers, FBG amplifiers.
Ah, yes.
Sounds pretty high tech, I know. But with our, well, constant need for faster data, it feels really fundamental.
It absolutely is fundamental. And actually, there's a recent market report that gives a fascinating look into just how significant it is.
Oh, interesting. What's the scope?
It focuses specifically on the global FBG amplifier market for 2025 and the projected size, USD 1,860.0 million.
Wow. Okay. $1.86 billion.
Yep. That figure alone really tells you something about its importance in today's infrastructure.
It certainly does. Almost $2 billion in just 1 year. That's serious stuff. So our mission today for this deep dive is to unpack that, right? Make sense of this market.
Precisely. We want to pull out the key insights from this report. What's driving the growth, who the major players are, maybe what challenges exist. The goal is to give you a clear, sort of digestible picture of where this technology stands in the market.
Fantastic. Now, before we dive into the numbers, can we quickly clarify fiber Bragg grating? What exactly is it in simple terms?
Sure. Think of it like a very, very selective mirror inside an optical fiber.
Okay.
It's a tiny section where the fiber's properties, specifically its refractive index, are altered in a repeating pattern.
Uh-huh.
This pattern acts like a filter. It reflects very specific wavelengths, or colors, of light while letting others pass straight through.
Right.
And in amplifiers, this trick is used to boost the power of only the specific light signals carrying data.
So it's like a highly tuned amplifier, only boosting the exact colors of light we need for our data.
Got it. And the main uses are, telecommunications and sensing.
Exactly. Telecom is a huge one, especially for long-distance networks. But as we'll see, the sensing applications are really taking off too.
All right, great foundation. So let's zoom out now, the big picture. What's the overall growth looking like for this market? Well, the report forecasts pretty robust growth. From that $1.86 billion in 2025, it's projected to hit USD 2,665.4 million by 2033.
Okay, 2.66 billion.
Right. That works out to a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR, of 4.60% between 2025 and 2033.
4.6%. So not like explosive, but definitely steady, significant growth.
Exactly. It signifies a solid upward trend.
What's the main engine behind that increase?
The report points pretty clearly to advancements in telecommunications and networking.
Make sense?
I mean, think about our demand for bandwidth, streaming, cloud, big data transfers. It all needs faster, more efficient networks, and FPG amplifiers are key components there.
Yeah, that resonates completely. Our data appetite just seems endless. Now, I'm always curious about the geography. Who's leading the pack right now, and where's the fastest growth happening?
Okay, so in 2025, North America is expected to be the dominant region.
Right.
They're projected to hold over 37% of the global revenue. That's about USD 688.3 million.
Wow, over a third of the market.
Yeah. And their growth is forecast at a CAGR of 3.4% through to 2033.
So North America is the current leader. Why is that? What's driving their dominance?
Well, the report mentions the strong presence of major telecom companies there.
Yeah.
Plus, they've made significant investments in fiber optic infrastructure, for 5G rollouts and just general high-speed internet access. They were relatively early adopters.
Right, that early investment gives them a head start. Makes sense. What about other major regions? Europe.
Europe's the second largest. They've got over 29% market share predicted for 2025, which is around USD 539.40 million.
Right.
And their growth rate, their CAGR, is actually slightly higher than North America's at 3.7%.
Interesting. So Europe's keeping pace nicely. Now, Asia Pacific, I have to imagine that's a region to watch.
Yeah.
With all the tech adoption happening there.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. While their market share in 2025 is projected around 24%.
So smaller than Europe for now.
Yes, about USD 446.40 million. But, and this is the key point, the report flags APAC as the fastest growing region by far.
Oh, really? How fast?
A CAGR of 7.3% from 2025 to 2033.
Wow, 7.3%. That's really striking compared to the others.
It really is. This rapid growth in APAC isn't just a number, it's showing a fundamental shift. Their big push on 5G smart cities, it means they're creating massive demand for this kind of advanced optical tech.
So what's specifically fueling that 7.3% in APAC?
It's a few things. Big economies like China, India, Japan are adopting fiber optics much more widely now.
Right.
And then you have, as I mentioned, the huge 5G rollouts and these ambitious smart city projects popping up all over. They just need the infrastructure.
That paints a very clear picture. APAC is where the major momentum is. What about the smaller regions? South America, Middle East, Africa?
South America is projected just over 3.8% share in 2025, about $70.68 million with a decent 4.9% CAGR.
Okay.
The Middle East is similar, around 4% share, $74.40 million, and actually a slightly higher CGR at 5.1%.
And Africa?
Africa starts smaller, around 2.2% share, roughly $40.92 million. But the projected growth there is much slower, only a 0.9% CAGR.
Okay, so quite a varied picture globally, but APAC is really the standout for growth potential. We've talked about telecom advances, but let's dig a bit deeper into the fundamental market drivers. What are the core forces pushing this market?
The report really breaks it down into three main drivers. First, no surprise, is the growing demand for high-speed internet.
Yeah, we keep coming back to that.
It's just unavoidable. Streaming, gaming, remote work, cloud services. Our reliance on data-heavy apps keeps pushing the need for better, faster infrastructure.
Absolutely. Feels like bandwidth needs are just constantly accelerating. What's driver number two?
That would be the increasing adoption of fiber optic communication systems.
Right, the move away from older tech.
Exactly. Fiber just has huge advantages over traditional copper wires.
Right.
Much higher bandwidth, so faster speeds, and way less signal degradation over distance.
Like comparing a superhighway to a country lane for data.
That's a good analogy, and FBG amplifiers are crucial on that superhighway. They act like booster stations, keeping the signal strong and clear, especially over those really long stretches.
Makes perfect sense. Fiber is the road, FBGs keep the traffic moving smoothly. Okay, and the third key driver.
This one's interesting. Rising applications in sensing and monitoring. This is where FBG tech really steps beyond just telecom.
Ah, yes, the sensing part we touched on. What kind of applications are we seeing there?
Well, think about monitoring the structural health of bridges or pipelines in real time, or measuring temperature and pressure in really harsh industrial settings. Even things like medical devices and aerospace, FBG sensors boosted by these amplifiers can do that.
Fascinating. So it's not just about faster internet anymore.
Not at all. The versatility is quite remarkable.
It's amazing to think about. But with all this potential, surely there are challenges. Any major factors holding back growth?
Yes, the report does highlight one key restraint: the high cost of fiber Bragg grating systems.
Oh, no. Okay, the cost factor.
Right. Manufacturing these things is complex. It needs very precise fabrication, specialized equipment. It all adds up to a higher initial cost.
Understandable.
And that can definitely be a barrier, especially for, projects or regions with tighter budgets.
Right, cutting-edge tech often comes with that initial premium. So, despite the cost, what are the major trends shaping the market right now? Where's the focus?
Well, one big trend is simply the continued expansion of telecommunication networks. This ties directly back to that driver about fiber adoption.
More fiber means more need for amplifier.
Exactly. Telecom companies are constantly upgrading, extending fiber reach into new areas. FBG amplifiers are essential for that, especially for the long-haul links. We even saw France nationalize Alcatel Submarine Networks, ASN, back in November 2024.
Oh, right. Remember that.
That move really highlights how strategically important this kind of undersea cable infrastructure and the tech that supports it is considered. It shows a long-term commitment.
Yeah, that nationalization definitely sent a signal.
Yeah.
Okay, what other key trends are emerging? You mentioned the exciting stuff with new technologies earlier.
Yes. This is where it gets really interesting, I think. It's the integration of fiber Bragg grating with emerging technologies.
Like what specifically?
Think 5G, the Internet of Things, IoT, autonomous vehicles, smart cities, smart infrastructure.
All the buzzwords, basically.
Well, yeah, but they all rely on high performance, real-time sensing and communication. And FBG tech, because it's so precise and reliable, is perfectly suited for that.
How so?
It provides the kind of detailed, real-time data these systems need. For example, Terexion, one of the players in this space, launched new filters, WSF series filters, in December 2024. And they specifically targeted both telecom and sensing applications.
Showing that convergence.
Exactly. It demonstrates how the tech is bridging those worlds.
So FDG amplifiers aren't just boosting signals anymore. They're becoming like an enabling technology for whole new types of innovation.
Oh, yeah.
That feels like a significant shift. Now, the report also mentions tariffs. I imagine that's having an impact.
Absolutely. The report specifically calls out the Liberation Day tariffs from 2025. These introduced varied rates on goods from different countries, plus universal tariffs on things like steel, aluminum, auto parts. It's definitely shaken things up, especially for the electronics sector, which is key for FPG components.
Okay, so how has that specifically hit the FPG amplifier market?
Well, the electronics sector, where many FPG amplifier components come from, has been really impacted, particularly with the ongoing U.S.-China trade situation.
Yeah.
Tariffs on some Chinese electronics reportedly went as high as 145%. We're talking like 25% on semiconductors, 20% on lithium-ion batteries, 10–15% on various consumer electronics, many of which use subcomponents relevant to FPG systems.
Oh, those are huge cost bumps. How does that mess with the supply chain?
Well, it directly inflates component costs, obviously, but it also disrupts supply chains that were built up over years. Companies are now scrambling to reevaluate where they get their parts.
So looking for alternatives.
Yes, the report mentions companies actively looking at suppliers in places like India, Mexico, Vietnam, but it's tricky. Because even if you source a main component from, say, Vietnam, some of its subcomponents might still originate in China, so the tariff impact can be hard to escape completely.
Right, it's a tangled web.
Yeah.
So what are companies actually doing about it? What are the strategies?
The report points to a few things. Companies are really scrutinizing their supplier networks. They're actively shifting sourcing where they can to avoid the highest tariffs. And some are even trying to redesign products to use components less affected by the tariffs.
Wow, redesigning products. That's a big step.
It is. And in this kind of uncertain environment, the report stresses how vital market research becomes. For finding those new suppliers, tracking costs, optimizing designs to lessen the tariff blow.
It sounds like a constant juggling act. Okay, let's pivot back to the tech itself. The report segments the market by type and wavelength. What are the key things to know there?
All right, so under by type, the report expects C-band Erbium-doped Fiber Amplifiers, EDFAs, to remain dominant.
C-band EDFAs. Why those?
Think of the C-band as the main highway for current long-distance fiber optics. It's very efficient. EDFAs working in the C-band range are widely used because they're great at boosting signals over long distances.
Okay.
And FPG technology helps make them even better. It helps tailor the amplification precisely, keeps the gain flat across different channels, and cuts down noise.
So FPGs fine-tune these C-band workhorses. What about other types? Anything growing fast?
Yes, the report highlights L-band Raman Fiber Amplifiers, or RFAs, as the fastest growing segment by type.
L-band Raman, what's special about that?
The L-band is another chunk of the light spectrum, 1565 to 1625 nanometers. It actually has even lower signal loss than the C-band, which makes it really good for ultra-long-distance links.
Okay, even longer distances.
Right. And in these Raman amplifiers, MPGs are used for really precise filtering, supporting wavelength division, multiplexing WDM, which is how you cram lots of data streams onto one fiber.
Like different lanes on the highway.
Exactly. And FPGs also help stop unwanted reflections. It all leads to a cleaner, more efficient signal, especially important for those massive capacity long-haul systems.
Okay, so C-band is the main workhorse. L-band is the fast-growing specialist for ultra-long haul. Got it. Now, what about segmentation by wavelength?
Here, the segment below 1500 millimeter currently holds the biggest market share.
Below 1500, what's that used for?
It's used in optical communications, definitely, but also quite a bit in sensing and laser tech, especially relevant for dense wavelength division multiplexing DWDM systems. That's the really high-density version of WDM.
Okay. And which wavelength segment is growing fastest?
That would be the 1500–1550 millimeter range.
1500 to 1550. Why is that one expanding so rapidly?
Because that specific range is absolutely critical for those DWDM systems we just mentioned. FPG amplifiers here are essential. They selectively boost each individual data channel within that incredibly dense stream of light, maintaining signal strength across all channels.
It really is about precisely managing all those different colors of light to maximize data flow. Okay, final segmentation. By application, where are FPG amplifiers most used right now?
Currently, the largest market share by application belongs to civil and geotechnical.
Civil engineering, really?
Yeah.
That's unexpected. How are they used there?
Well, in geotechnical engineering, think about monitoring things like soil movement, groundwater pressure, or the structural health of dams, bridges, tunnels.
Using the sensing capability.
Exactly. FPG-based sensors amplified by these systems are incredibly sensitive. They can detect tiny changes, which is obviously crucial for safety and making sure these large structures are sound. Actually, France's electricity grid operator, RTE, signed big contracts for underground power cables back in November 24 to help meet climate goals. That kind of major infrastructure work often involves this type of monitoring.
That's a really fascinating application. I hadn't fully grasped that. So while telecom drives a lot of the growth, the biggest current use is actually monitoring physical infrastructure
Interesting.
and the fastest growing application.
The report points to automotive and transportation.
Okay, that makes more sense. Connected cars, autonomous vehicles.
Precisely. There's huge potential here. Enhancing in-vehicle communication, monitoring the health of the chassis, suspension, maybe even tires,
Right.
and improving safety by providing real-time data for predictive maintenance. Imagine sensors in your tires telling you about pressure and wear instantly. That's the kind of thing FPG tech could enable.
That's incredible. From checking bridge stability to making cars safer, the scope is way broader than just faster downloads.
It really is. Telecom is still hugely important, don't get me wrong, but it's this expansion into diverse areas like civil engineering, transportation, and other sensing fields that makes this market so dynamic. The cost is still a factor, sure, but the relentless demand for data and for better ways to monitor the physical world keeps opening doors. And, as we discussed, those global trade dynamics add a whole layer of complexity that companies need to navigate.
So, wrapping this up, looking ahead with things like 5G, IoT, autonomous systems really taking off, how might this FPG amplifier technology fundamentally change things? Not just our networks, but maybe how we interact with the physical world. And, if the costs do come down over time, what totally new applications might pop up that we haven't even thought of yet? It definitely leaves you with a lot to consider.
It certainly does. And for you listening, if any particular part grabbed your interest, maybe the sensing side or the tariff impacts, I'd really encourage you to dig a bit deeper, look up some of the companies involved, explore those transportation applications, or just keep an eye on how global trade continues to shape this tech landscape. It's a fascinating area that's evolving really quickly.